The room with no clocks. The scariest place I've ever been wasn't a prison or a war zone. It was a quiet, white room where nobody asked why I stopped smiling. I never planned to end up in a psych ward. I mean, who does? You spend your life thinking those places are for other people. The ones on the news. The ones screaming in alleys. Not guys like me. Not guys with a mortgage, a LinkedIn profile, and a dog named Kevin. But then, it happens. And suddenly you're sitting in a room with no clocks, wearing socks with no laces, wondering how the hell you got there. It started small. At least it felt small. Couldn't sleep. Kept checking the locks. Heart racing in the grocery store. Crying during toothpaste commercials, which, for the record, is not the kind of minty freshness they're selling. I told myself it was stress. Work was brutal. My dad had died the year before. My girlfriend left with zero explanation unless you count "you're always somewhere else" as an explanation. Maybe I was. But at the time I was too proud, or too stupid, to notice I was unraveling. The real breakdown came on a Tuesday. I was driving to work, coffee in hand, radio low. Then I missed my exit. No big deal, right? But instead of turning around, I just kept driving. 50 miles. No destination. No music. Just me and the static between stations. When I finally pulled over at a gas station, I stared at my hands and didn't recognize them. They were shaking like they belonged to someone else. And in that moment I said it out loud, to no one. I think I'm broken. Checking into a psychiatric facility isn't like in the movies. No straitjackets. No echoing screams. No evil nurse with a clipboard. It was quiet. Too quiet. The walls were off-white. The food was beige. The people mostly gray around the eyes. And there were no clocks. They don't allow them. Time isn't measured by hours there. It's measured by pill rounds, therapy sessions, and how many times you manage to get out of bed. My roommate was named Gary. Mid-50s, chain smoker, even though we weren't allowed, and he snored like a dying tractor. He'd been in and out of the system for decades. When I told him it was my first time, he laughed and said, "Congrats, rookie. You just got your mind's oil changed." Weird metaphor. But not entirely wrong. Therapy was the worst part. Not because of the therapist, she was actually kind. Too kind. It made me suspicious. But sitting in a circle of strangers, each telling the story of how their world fell apart, it forces you to stop pretending your pain is special. Turns out pain's got a million faces, and most of them look like your own. There was this kid, maybe 22, who tried to jump off his dorm roof. A woman who hadn't spoken to anyone in 3 months. And then me, the functional adult, who hadn't felt anything in a year. I told them about my job. My dad's funeral, where I gave a eulogy and felt nothing. And when I said it, that I felt nothing, I finally broke. Right there in group therapy, in front of strangers and beige linoleum, I wept like a man who had just found his soul under a pile of rubble. Gary gave me a cigarette later. Said, "You cracked open. That's where the healing leaks in." I told him that was cheesy. He said, "So is your haircut, but here we are." I spent 12 days in that room with no clocks. Some people left better. Some didn't leave at all. But I walked out with a prescription, a journal, and a tiny flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not the dramatic Hollywood kind. Just the quiet idea that maybe I could still rebuild. It wasn't linear. Healing never is. I had relapses. Panic attacks. Nights where I clutched my chest thinking it was a heart attack, not just anxiety doing its evil little dance. I lost some friends who didn't get it. But I found others who did. People who didn't flinch when I said mental health in a sentence. People who knew that strength isn't silence, it's choosing to speak even when your voice trembles. But I still take the meds. Still have the journal. Still drive past that gas station sometimes, just to remind myself how far I've come. And when people ask me how I'm doing, I don't say, "Fine." I say, "Today I'm okay." And that's enough. I know this isn't the kind of story people share on first dates or job interviews. But I share it now, here, because maybe someone out there is driving past their exit, thinking they're too broken to be fixed. And to that person I say, you're not broken. You're just human. And sometimes, even humans need a tune-up. If you're struggling, don't wait for the crash. Don't wait for the room with no clocks. Speak before the silence becomes louder than you can bear.